Backpack Broadcasting continues to bring you the best original sports content, but now you can get more of the content you love. For as little as $3 a month, you can get access to bonus content, including behind-the-scenes footage and interviews from the Sports Walk, Sideline Stories, or the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. All this exclusive content comes via Patreon. There are tiered levels of patronage, and each Backpack Broadcasting patron receives exclusive perks. Your support helps Backpack Broadcasting create more of the original content that you love. Visit Backpack Broadcasting's Patreon page and become a patron today. Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, episode 112. Dexter Henry, Brian Fonseca.
Yeah.
And for the first time on this podcast, we have a politician, political candidate, you can say Democratic candidate for the New York 5 region of Queens and Nassau. Now new friend of the podcast. We've just been getting to know him. Shan Chowdhury. Shan, what's up, man?
What's going on, y'all? Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Let me tell the people how I met this guy, because you know when some people hear politics, they're like, oh,
yeah,
God, here we go.
No, this is gonna be a fun political.
It is. So I met you playing rugby. I wasn't playing rugby. You were playing rugby.
I'm surprised he wasn't, because he loves violence.
I played football, but I had a cup of coffee playing football before. But you were playing rugby. I did a rugby story. You were playing on the Brooklyn Kings. You still play on the Brooklyn Kings.
Still play for Brooklyn Kings, yeah.
You were one of the players that I interviewed for that story. We just kept in contact. And then all of a sudden on Twitter, I'm looking at, so he's getting into politics now, getting into Congress in New York City or whatever. And then I'm looking at, his name is getting out there. He's getting endorsed by Shaun King. You know what I mean? Things like that. You're getting behind Bernie Sanders, so we're going to get into all that stuff. But this is how that sort of ties in. It starts at rugby, and it ends, or not ends, it continues into Congress in a short while. But I guess let's start there at the very beginning, because you said this wasn't part of the plan early on. Like when I met you, you were just kind of playing rugby, still figuring it out. You were in the Marines for six years. So I guess, like, how did this path start, since it's relatively new?
Man, I guess you could say it's God's plan, right? It was in God's hands. I mean, It was just a twist of fate, honestly. Like, when I was playing rugby, my only goal was to just like any other kid coming out the hood, trying to chase your dreams, trying to, make it to the league or whatever. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go play rugby. Yeah. I can go to England, Australia, whatever. And I had torn my meniscus and MCL in 2017. So I missed a whole season after that. I'm like, all right, I need something to do. I was in my last year of college. Let me get my degree. I went to John Jay College, so not too far from here.
Okay.
Got my degree in Law and Society. And then I just decided to do an internship up in the New York State Assembly. I just needed like 6 more credits, get my degree and get out. But then when I went up there, I'm like, yo, this is wild. There's so many things that people back on the block that don't know how this works. And that we're constantly, like, poor black and brown people constantly left outside of the democratic process. And we could change all that, but no one's listening to us. And what can we do to change it? We need to, like, mass mobilize people to come together and, like, take on the establishment, right?
Right, yeah.
So when I got back, and it was, like, crazy timing, man. AOC just came up right on the scene.
Yeah.
And the wild part was that a friend of mine, actually, she worked with Alex, I call her Alex, but AOC, at the restaurant that she was working at. I kept them back in my head for a while. I'm like, all right, cool. if I need to help out, whatever, I'll get on board when I can. And then when I actually saw her on the Young Turks one time, I'm like, yo, she's, like, talking that talk. Like, I had to, So got on board on her campaign, started out as a volunteer, and then they just needed someone to be with her at all times. So I happened to have a car. And they're like, yo, Shan, just pick her up in the Bronx, go wherever you need to go, bring her back home, and it was just a repeat every day. But I got so much advice from her. I got to see what it's like being a candidate firsthand. It's an emotional roller coaster, spiritually, emotionally, physically too. I haven't hit the gym like in a week, and I'm like stressed about that, man.
I know that feeling.
Where you're so busy and it's hard to get to the gym.
How much of seeing her, because, I think a lot of people from New York City, a lot of black and brown people were inspired by what you saw her do in the Bronx, and still inspired by what she's doing right now, right? Like, so seeing that close up every day, did that kind of plant the seed then to say, yo, I could do this too?
Probably not.
Huh, okay.
Probably not. For me, I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do yet. I'm still like, at the time at least, still in my mid-20s, trying to figure life out like anybody else.
Yeah.
And I figured, you know what? Actually, around this time last year, I was about to apply to law school.
Huh.
I was thinking about going to law school or maybe even becoming a teacher, trying to figure things out. But then what clicked for me was actually went down to Tijuana in December 2018. So, being a veteran, you saw what Trump was doing. He was sending down the military down there at the border. And it's like the San Diego border, the Texas border. So I got together with like other veteran organizers and other organizers who worked on AOC's campaign. We're like, yo, we got to do something about this. We have to be in the opposition, right, just to demilitarize the border. So we went down there to help all these asylum seekers, to help these people who are just escaping government persecution, poverty, you name it. And if you think about it, it's our country, our government. We set the stone for the environment down there for like the last century, essentially, right?
Right.
And it's been a repeat, even with the war on drugs and everything. People are continuing to flee the countries because of what we created. So when you have like mothers and children coming up to the border, and these are like mass majority of them are mother and children, they should tell you something's wrong. There's something wrong here. So when I got back, I'm like, all right, well, my Congress member, he represents the most diverse borough in the world. He sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. He could do something about this, have a stronger stance on immigration. New York 5 had a 70% ratio of people coming from immigrant families. You know, so it's vast majority of black and brown people, 50% blacks, 20% Latinos, 20% South Asians. We make up it. We make up diversity of Queens, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, Gregory Meeks, can we make sure that people are getting fed, making sure that they're getting health care, making sure that their human rights are being violated, making sure that the asylum cases are being processed. He undermined all that, was like, you know what, we just need to create more bed space for them in these detention centers. I'm like,
That doesn't solve
bro,
the problem.
I'm like...
And then the light bulb clicked. You were like, I need to go against this guy.
That's when I started taking, because I was just pissed off at this point, bro. I'm like,
but Dex, what do I always say? Sometimes you just got to get pissed off, and then things are going to change.
Listen, anger. I always say this to him too, right? Like, it's not that anger is ever wrong, right? It's what you do with that anger, right? And how you channel that. And it sounds like you channel that into something positive to actually try to have some change. Because what I find interesting in you telling that story, right, is like you got people together to go see what you could do.
Right.
Then you came back home and was like, hey, what can we do back home?
Right.
And you kind of saw people was like, yeah, I kind of really don't care about this. We're just kind of going to push this to the side.
Yeah.
But you didn't give up.
Nah.
Right? You kept going.
And you figured that, there's something that I can do about this. So how did you get to that process where you were, he says that, you sort of receive it the way you receive it, and then you go from there to, you know what, I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to try to change this myself.
Yeah, I mean, it was a day-by-day kind of thinking process. Like, I had to do more research before I even decided on doing this. I had to make sure that, one, don't get me wrong, like, he's been there for 20 years, so he has clout. He has money. He has the power of the establishment, so I had to be careful. I want to make sure that if I do this, like, I got to do it the right way.
Sure.
I have no money whatsoever. I started this campaign with $0.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let me see if there's anyone else maybe out there thinking about running. Maybe I could support them. Let's play it out. Waited for a while, nothing. And then I do more research on this guy. I'm like, yo, there's more to this. There's more to this, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that stuck out is that the voter turnout in this district is 3%. 3% is very, very low.
So he's been. Let's also be, to be clear for the people, your opponent, who you'll see in the primary, he's been there for 21 years.
21 years.
The voter turnout, like you said, is 3%. This is the New York 5 district. This is South Queens, Nassau, part of western part of Long Island. It kind of sounds to me when you say that with the voter turnout being 3%. It's like he's been skating by, or he's been skating by because low voter turnout. Know who he's going to get, so he's going to get the same people voting for him all the time, and just gets reelected. And there's really not been a serious challenge. I take it that you feel that you are that serious challenge.
Yeah,
I feel good about it. I mean, the people on the streets feel good about it. Like, we've been able
there
to.
There you go. That's what matters.
People
on the streets.
No,
but
that's real though.
No,
real.
I'm being serious about that.
Because if I had to think about what's making up the 3% of the voter turnout, I don't think there are going to be we talked about Bernie Sanders for a little bit before this podcast, and Bernie Sanders, he's big on people of, our generation, Sean.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah,
millennials,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Is Gregory Meeks targeting those
Yeah,
people?
did you
I
find
don't think that
when
he
you look-
is at
yeah, when
all.
looked
You know
into
what
the
I
numbers,
mean?
Did you find it? Yeah, is he targeting those people, or did you find out that what did you find out from looking at that 3%? I assumed you looked deeper into it. What did you find out?
So what I started finding out, all right, where is his voting base, right? So I started finding out, all right, well, it's definitely like these local Democratic clubs where, you know, I'm not trying to be an ageist or anything, but most of them are old folks, are aunties and uncles, are their parents.
That's how these things go.
And it's literally the same meeting every month and talking about the same thing that lasts for 3-4 hours. I'm like, yo, a lot of young people don't have time for this. That's why we don't show up.
Right.
You know? And then they expect us to go there and just listen to them.
Yeah.
Keep things the way that they are. But it's like we keep the same things that the way they are, and it's killing us.
Yes.
Literally, it's killing us.
I mean, that locally and then nationally, you could do that in anything.
And
just
then
about.
and when we think about like young people not wanting to be involved in politics, is because of like how much everything that has like harmed us. We hate the system itself, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like voting apathy.
Yeah.
So when like I live in the 40 Project in South Jamaica, when I tell people where I live, bro, they're like, all right, I got you. I got you.
40p is real.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
40p is real.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I'm going to bring it back to something here. We spoke about this off camera and off the pod. All of us sitting here are children of immigrant parents. We all have grown up in communities where there's been a ton of people like us, Black and brown, Latino folks.
Yeah.
To see that, I think you talked about people being desensitized with politics and sort of having the apathy towards it. I was at that place at one point, right? Where it was just like, I don't care. I'm a little bit more hopeful for certain things because of the diversity we're seeing, because we're seeing AOC, because we're seeing more women get in places in politics that we can see it visible nationally. How could you talk about how important it is to have that diversity so we can see Black and brown and Latino folks representing, knowing the needs of their community and actually fighting for those needs? Yeah.
I mean, representation is important, but, you know, there's a slang that goes like, not all skin folk are kinfolk, right? So
amen to that.
It's like, if the values of what you're trying to represent for your community doesn't really reflect it, then there is no point of you being there. None.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Right?
Period. Yeah.
So when I look at Gregory Meeks, I'm like, bro, you've been there for 20 years. You have no business being congressman right now. Like, you could be a lobbyist, you know, whatever. But when you're talking about the amount of home foreclosures, like we have a housing crisis in New York 5. The amount of home foreclosures that's been going on over there in Queens has been devastating. 2019, we lost 320 homes. And the most people that are affected by it were people from like St. Albans, Cambria Heights, Springfield Gardens. This is all New York 5.
Wow.
It's crazy. And then you got to look at the bigger picture. It's not him, not only him. He's just enabling the system. And like he's taking money. He takes $2 million per cycle from Wall Street. And these are like big banks, payday lenders who do everything they can to ensure that they lobby him so he could vote on legislation that will deregulate big banks, payday lenders who have no interest in like working people and like our well-being. They have an interest in making money.
So the question, whenever I hear something like that, and that comes or that's attached to another candidate, my thing is always, yo, who's cool with this? Like who in the community is okay with that? And maybe part of them not being okay, Sean, is that they just are not aware, right? Like
I was going to say that.
Information is kind of key. So like maybe they're just not aware. Do you feel like that's the problem in your district right now?
Yeah, because again, going back to like how low the voter turnout is, right? A lot of people are not really connected with what's going on, and it's not their fault because, listen, working people, poor people, they're working 9 to 5, sometimes even longer. They got to come back home, take care of the kids. They have no time to like dig up for knowledge.
Right. Yeah.
So like a key initiative for our team is like making sure we go door to door, make phone calls, doing outreach, social media, trying to find out where people are from the district and let them know like, yo, this is important. And it's important for everyday people to be a part of this. Like we could take back our power right here, right now, you know? So it does take a lot of like current, just taking that initiative and that step forward to having that conversation about what's going on and how we could go forward and make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that matters too because now I'm thinking about how maybe my parents would sort of take all this in, right? And yeah, there's literally, not enough time for them to sort of do that because you get home from work, you're tired. I mean, some people work 9 to 5, but then a lot of people also work 9 to like 11 because they're working overtime. Yeah. So when they get home, they're really not gonna, look at that sort of stuff. And then when they look at politics, there's still that buzzword, and they take it in a way that's like, oh, I don't want to deal with this.
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? I just kind of want to live my life or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I joked in the beginning of the podcast, when we say we're bringing in a politician, people are going to be like, oh, God, here we go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
man.
I would. Hope,
I think how do you sort of plan on, I guess, bridging that gap, right?
Right.
How do you sort of plan on just filling that to where it's like, look, this is like, we need to focus on this, and in a way that's not so exhausting for the common person,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Makes sense. I mean, initially we need to have, again, like, it's about mass mobilizing people, right? Like the establishment itself, they're going to have the money, they're going to have millions of dollars to ensure that they throw out crazy ads, they'll like send out mailers.
Bloomberg's doing that right now.
And like the politicians are buying themselves in.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. You have billionaires out there who are buying themselves in, while there are like more qualified people who couldn't raise the funds to stay in the race, right? And so when we like think about like people like Julian Castro, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, they are, what they brought to the table was that they brought diversity. Whether or not you agreed with some of their policies, what mattered was that they brought representation for the voiceless, that people that look like us.
Yeah.
And that mattered.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the money or the funds to stay in. But then you have like rich white billionaires, racist oligarchs, by the way, coming in and make it seem like I got this, like the arrogance, right?
You know what though?
Go ahead,
because we talk about like our industry, we both work in media.
Yeah.
We both work primarily in sports media. Although Dexter's at a weather network now, but primarily a sports person. It's the same thing in our industry too. Where at the end of the day, people with the money or people that come from money, like those are the ones that are going to end up rising to the top usually in some form or fashion, as opposed to, there are going to be other people, specifically other people who are minorities, whether it's talent, work ethic, they need to make up 5 times this and 10 times that, and you need to work 5 times as hard to get to this place. And I think it seems like what you're saying is just sort of the same thing in what you do.
Yeah, it is. And like for us, it's about like doing something that you love and like taking that in, but like setting our own standards. Like, forget the way the world tells us like how we should do things. Like, forget all that.
See, I say that all the time.
Yeah, you make your own rules.
You make your own rules. You make your own rules.
You can change the game.
Yeah.
And I feel like you are. How it's funny you touched on something that made me think of a question. You talked about looking at the presidential race for 2020 and seeing these billionaires buy in. Whether we saw Trump years ago, we saw Bloomberg.
Right.
Now buying in and then pandering to the minority folks with certain ads. Yeah, I see you shaking your head right now because that's why I'm shaking my head. I was watching some of the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago, and I saw it, and I'm like, really? Like, really? This is what we're doing? How does that make you feel, even as a fellow politician, when you see that?
Man, when I saw that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how?
The audacity.
Yo, seriously, man. Like, one, it's like he's been a Democrat for 15 minutes, first of all, right?
Right.
And he decides to I don't know, apologize, whatever that meant. Apologize for freaking stop and frisk for how many years? Like, we traumatized a whole generation under him for 3 terms. Traumatized the whole generation.
Yeah.
And now he wants to apologize before running for president. Like, nah.
So all of us just going to be like, oh, yeah,
we can't forget that.
We forgot. You got my vote. Nah.
But here's the thing. There are a lot of people in New York, older, by the way, who they were for stop and frisk because they thought that people that look like Shan or Dexter or myself, were the kinds of people that needed to be stopped and frisked at that time. I was stopped and frisked twice. Obviously didn't have anything on me. You know what I'm saying? But I was stopped twice. You said that you were stopped a bunch of times, Dexter.
I have not, but I got into a discussion with a cop about that. I told you guys about supporting that. Speaking of
that the cop was supporting.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/AHTT. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Speaking of stop and frisk, right? Your opponent has endorsed Mike Bloomberg. Obviously you're
That's a
shaking
black
your head.
dude.
You tweeted this. You said, my opponent, Gregory Meeks, is now endorsing Bloomberg for president. I could never, in all caps, support anyone for unjustly throwing black people in prison. I could never support anyone who targeted Muslims. I will always fight for all people. We need moral clarity now more than ever.
Yeah.
This is what you want. I will say this. I'll be very blunt and clear about this.
Okay.
I don't know Mr. Gregory Meeks. He does represent the district that you're trying to win is where my fiance's parents live in St. Albans. So I do have some concern for that, obviously. They are homeowners in St. Albans. How that brother, Mr. Gregory Meeks, how you can support Bloomberg with the policies that he's had in the city that's affected people that look like each and every one of us sitting at this table is disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have to answer for that.
He does, and no one has really asked him straight up.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to bring that up too.
Has anybody asked him straight up?
I was going to bring that up too,
man?
because obviously if he skated by for as long as he has, and with only 3% of the people voting in that area, obviously not a lot of people seem to care enough.
Right.
So will he be asked about that? And that's where I think
has
you
he?
come in.
Has he? Or are you saying that to this date, as of right now, as this recording, nobody's asked him this directly?
And do people care to?
I think people do care to. I haven't seen it within the community itself. I feel like a lot of people that have been supporting him have been kind of like hush hush ever since that's happened. They're like, I can tell you right now from what I know through the grapevines that a lot of people in circles were not happy with what he did. He did it without their knowledge, and he was like, I'm gonna do this.
Huh.
You know, and essentially what to look at is that he's not supporting Bloomberg to run against Trump. He's supporting Bloomberg to run against Bernie Sanders.
Right.
That's just me.
Right.
That's just me.
I see. Right. Yeah. This is wow. This is so much.
Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders is someone who actually speaks to like people in this room who are younger.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh
As
yeah.
opposed
Definitely.
to Mike Bloomberg is tapping into that older generation that basically baseball fans.
But you know what? Like one thing we've been doing, literally that day that it happened, we went out there in the streets, especially in St. Albans. Our team went out there, went door to door, like, yo, you know what your Congress member just did?
Yeah.
Furious.
Yeah.
Good.
Furious.
How big is your team right now?
Man, we have a huge team. We have a stacked team. We have, campaign manager, field director. We have a couple field directors, finance person. Then we have like about 100 volunteers signed up. So we hit we hit the block like almost every other day. Make phone calls every day. Make sure that we have to raise like grassroots money, right? So
Yeah, but that's important.
It's important. It's
especially if you're going up against the establishment in this case, right?
Yeah.
Because what they're going to do is they're going to, in any industry, they're always going to try to win with connections, money, people that have been there for a long period of time, where people like us have to hit the streets.
Yeah.
People like us have to hit Twitter, have to hit social media.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that have been following you, because your followers have been going crazy. I remember when you had like 500 or whatever the case may be, and now you're about to touch 10,000. By the time this comes out, you're probably going to touch 10,000. But a lot of the people that are following you, I think they're just tired of the normalcy that, everything has become, where it's just, we don't really know what's going on. People are just getting by based off of money and, what are their policies really, where it's like you're tapping into the streets and the people who are tired of the establishment, sort of like Farrakhan was talking about in that Freddie Gibbs sample with the Black Thought song.
Yes.
Yeah, like stuff like that.
You're telling me you're going out in the streets, you guys are knocking doors, you're letting people know about some of the messed up stuff that's happening in their community, particularly from your opponent. You said the response is a lot of anger from that with people. Do you feel like, two-part question here, do you feel like you're getting those people to come on one, your side, and two, have you spoken to your opponent, and do you know if he's kind of shook right now? He should be.
Man, he should be. I can tell you that he's definitely aware. He's not taking this too lightly, at least. I think that I think he's pretty comfortable knowing that he has $1 million because of the people that are lobbying him. And he is the current chairman of the Queens County Democratic Party, which is another story in itself. They built a lot of like local community with politicians over there, and they really decide how the politics really works in Queens. So that's another story in itself. But I could tell you that he definitely knows. To know how nervous he is, I think someone does have to ask him. But I've never had a conversation with him besides that one time. It was literally a tweet. where when I came back from the border, I tweeted at him about this issue. And that's when we had that dialogue about, him thinking that we need just more beds in these detention centers. Wow. But, yeah, and what was the other question?
Oh, no. Well, I guess one was, do you feel like people are coming on your side because of the anger that they kind of are hearing about things in their community and how it's affecting them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, like, we're on the side of the people are on our side. And just getting new faces involved, people who have never been a part of this, it's inspiring them to, like, really exercise their political tools and platforms to do something great. This is what it's about, right? Because coming where we come from, no one's really guided us into getting into stuff like this. It's about maybe going to school, become a doctor, lawyer, or, trying to be an athlete or an artist, but never anything like this where you could be a true representative, a voice for your people. It's never been like that. Yeah. And if you do, it's people who are at the top already and they tell you to wait your turn. For me, it's like, I'm not waiting my turn anymore. Yeah. We've waited long enough.
Facts.
Amen to that.
What are the things, and just from talking to just people, from that area or just in general, what are the things that you're hearing them complain about the most?
Man, housing. So New York 5 has, I want to say 6 to 8 NYCHA complexes. Mm-hmm. I live in public housing. And the infrastructure, we're talking about mold. These are outdated buildings, lead. Yeah, man, it's heartbreaking.
I want to stop you right there for a second in that with housing. When I used to work for News 12, I used to do a lot of stories about NYCHA housing. A lot. I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
And how it will work, I think it's kind of messed up with media, right? Like what we would do is somebody would call us and be like, yo, the water's like in my ceiling. The mold is horrible. We go there, we do the story, we kind of shame NYCHA, and then NYCHA will come and fix the problem, but then the problems will continuously repeat. And I've spoken with people who worked for NYCHA about this and the challenges they face with funding and everything too. Yeah. So I'm not trying to crap on NYCHA. I do think it means a lot. I want to say this, that you're somebody who's come from public housing, from 40P in South Jamaica, that really understands the challenges there that a lot of people face, to be able to speak about such a major crisis that not only is in New York City, but we see in a lot of large cities across the country.
Yeah, man.
I think sometimes there's a huge disconnect, Sean, that for people who live in public housing, people who don't. I think people on the outside look at it and be like, oh, man, that's shocking. That's so bad. But they don't really actively do anything. It's almost like, yeah, but I don't have to live there.
Yeah.
How do you bridge that gap as a candidate to maybe make people who don't live in public housing understand the challenges that folks who are in public housing what they're facing?
I mean, when we talk about people who live in public housing, these are the working class, the people who, every policy we make does affect people like us. It does, right? And I think that we have to be more conscious of the fact that every decision we make today is going to affect the people for tomorrow. Right, and that's not only people who live in public housing, but we're talking about the next upcoming generation too. They have to deal with it. For us, it's like we grew up in an era after 9/11, the financial crash, and look where we are today, right? And we got Trump, so it's like we're having to deal with all that. So when we talk about people in public housing specifically, it's like we just have to be more aware that a lot of the policies that we make, especially for public housing, also does affect people who own homes. There's a direct correlation with homeowners and people who live in public housing. We're talking about the federal government needing to actually fully fund our communities. That means demilitarizing our military, taking funding out, making sure that we do invest in infrastructure and housing and public education. So if we want our communities to be better, this is the way we have to do it. Simple as that. So it's like where I live. Literally, I live in it's like a 4-block radius of just public houses. 5 minutes down are homeowners. And we're all in one community, right? But sometimes it's a tale of two cities. But at the same time, it's like if we're sharing this one district, all our funding should be coming into our communities to help all of us. We have to get out of that individual mindset. It's about all our people. If people that look like us, I'm not fighting for myself. I'm fighting for people that look like us because we share a common bond, a common story, a shared history. That's what it's about. So we're trying to fight the same system here. But then the system got us fighting with one another.
And I think what you're seeing now, excuse me, just across the board in everything, right? AOC was very relatable in her sort of approach to everything. how she was just tired of the establishment and what was going on, how she, you know, people talked about, oh, she went to college, she worked at a bar, this and that, where there's a sort of disconnect between, I guess, older people and people of our generation, right?
Tell me about it.
So like it's kind like, it sounds like to me like you're gonna get that support also from like that grassroots level. I mean, you said you're living in public housing, right?
Yeah.
So have you heard from a lot of people in your neighborhood in these conversations? What are the things they've told you just about, like, you know, the respect that they probably have for you and supporting you and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I actually been working with the South Jamaica, shout out to the South Jamaica Resident Green Committee. So we actually work together on building a community farm. So we're talking about, you know, where we live, especially in poorer communities, there are a lot of like food deserts, right? So when we have supermarkets, they have like freaking food, produce that's about to expire, and they're telling us we have to buy it and eat it. Come on now.
Yo.
And if you go to like, if you drive out to like more, you know, well-off neighborhoods, they have like the organic, fresh and fruits. Like, you got everything, right? And you know, don't get me wrong, there are people, it's great stuff, but it's like you're telling poor people we have to like drive out of our way to get this quality access to food when we don't have that. Like we shouldn't be able to, like, we shouldn't have to drive out of our way to do that. Like we should be able to do that in our community. So the fact that we got a community garden and we don't charge anybody for it. It's like we grow own produce, we give it out to our neighbors, everyone eats well. So it's about, you know, wellness for our neighbors. So yeah, I mean, you know, focusing on things like that really does play into also things like climate change, things, you know, and other things too. Just about, you know, our own well-being, making sure that our healthcare is intact, but working with them, we see that these are just everyday people. You know, you're talking about majority. There is a problem with just not enough young people involved.
Right.
But don't get me wrong, a lot of the people that do come out have been like our elderly grandmothers and mothers. We need more men. Like we need to empower more men of color, especially taking action. You know, it can't just be the woman. Like, listen, our queens out there, they do the work.
Yeah.
But we gotta step up. We have to, as men, we have to step up.
That's true.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we've been able to just have these conversations. We see that our politicians, they don't come into our poor neighborhoods because they know that they're under the impression that we don't come out and vote.
That disconnect.
Yeah, it's that disconnect.
That's why they don't want that. But that's why they don't want to.
We don't give them money.
They don't want to tap into us.
They don't,
they don't want to tap into us, and they don't think we have the money to tap into them.
Yeah. And tapping in is I feel like really being there, doing stuff like you're doing in the community. One of the other things I saw when I was looking at some of your stuff and your platform and things you're trying to do is, you know, you're focused on healthcare for people, and that's a big you know, topic nationally for a lot of people. Healthcare for all. I think it's ridiculous in this country that some people can't afford healthcare, right? They literally can't afford the right to take care of themselves mentally and physically. I think it's important too.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much change do you want to see in that? And because I think the way things are, it doesn't work, Sean. Like it doesn't work, man. Like we got to change that.
I'm 26. I'm not on healthcare right now. You know what I mean? Mine just finished up.
I've been there.
February 1st. You know what I mean? Because I'm a freelancer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I'm trying to get something with benefits. But it's
that's
hard to get.
Yeah. What are you trying to do in terms of that fight?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we are in the richest nation in the world, and there's no reason why the richest nation in the world has some of the lowest health outcomes.
Deadass.
Doesn't make sense.
Nope. It makes no sense.
We have all this money, and where's it going to? We're profiteering off these endless wars. We've been in the Middle East for 20 plus years.
Right.
We are destabilizing governments in like Central South America. We're, you know, we play around too much and not really focusing on the needs of our own people here.
Yeah.
We've done too much damage. So when we continuously have healthcare industries, insurance industries, continuously making billions of dollars year in and year out, but poor people are dying more year in and year out, there is a problem there.
Yeah.
So Medicare for All is one. I think that 75 to 80% of people within the country support it, right? And that we can definitely get it passed, but we need the people in office to make sure that they do the work to get it passed in the House and then in the Senate, have the president sign it. So even though there's a lot of focus on the presidential race, and I know that, you know, for me, I support Bernie Sanders, but he can't do it by himself.
Right.
You know, he can't. Yeah. So we need a Congress, we need a Senate that will actually step up, pass the legislation in both houses so he can sign it off. So it's time, you know, but it's about the courage to really electing those who actually get in office and to do it.
And we're gonna get to the 2020 presidential race too, but you just said something that I felt like and that hearing you talk is something that I know myself and Bryan, and you talked about men stepping up, men of color stepping up, but just people in general. I don't think we're, as a society, we get excited about the 2020 presidential race, but are we doing enough where we're trying to elect congressmen, the people in your district, the people that are really representing you? I know myself, I'm going to be honest here, I don't go to my, local meetings. I know who my local assembly, woman is. I don't go to meetings. I should be more involved in things going in the community. Is that a message you try to also get to people, which is like, hey, you want change in your community, but you got to be more involved in the community and really have your voice, and that's how we get the change pushed, up the channels to D.C.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't really like telling people, what to be told to do
right.
and stuff.
Right,
You know, like
people hate that.
People hate that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not really entirely all on us, even though there's some accountability. Yeah, sure, we could take some action and do some things, right? But we have to look at the system, how archaic it is.
Yeah.
It's 2020. You're telling me that we can't make these community meetings more accessible to people.
We're not streaming them.
Yeah, right?
That's true.
Like, a lot of people don't know who their community board members are, and they actually make a lot of decisions in your local communities.
Yeah.
That, they could really decide on, like, what companies could actually come into your neighborhood and develop like these hotels or complexes, and that really does affect the way the cost of living will really occur in your block, right? A lot of people don't know that. So then when we complain about, man, my rent's too high, or it's, why don't we have a stop sign here? It's like, it's literally the people in the back room that make these decisions, but we don't know who they are. There's a lot of hidden faces. Right, the devil is in disguise. So
my brother's pissed off because in my neighborhood they got the city bike things now. They just put like 4 of them in a neighborhood, and he's like, "Yo, where am I? Like, those are parking spots."
Somebody on the community board voted that, right? And you're right. People don't even see. You're 100%. It's funny. I hadn't even thought about that part. And I've been to a lot of community board meetings as a journalist, and a lot of times there aren't many young people.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reporters were the youngest people in the room. I've been to these.
Oh, that's true.
And you're right. Why are we not in 2020 making this more accessible? Why isn't there somebody
on YouTube?
Streaming on YouTube. Yeah. Somebody can hold their phone and put it on Instagram Live, Twitter. There are actually ways you can get this out there.
People feel. I know if I would see that, I'll feel more inclined to watch.
Otherwise,
how? Especially again, this is them not tapping into our generation. But if you're from our generation, how are you sort of inclined to follow this if it's not accessible, if it's not being streamed where we can sort of watch it? And then people will start to probably get involved if they can see that there's ways of accessing this information through Twitter, through YouTube, through Instagram, whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, for young people, I think this is like so important. I tweeted this the other day about Bloomberg especially. I'm like, yesterday was the last day to actually register to vote in New York, so you could vote in the primaries coming up. It was also your last opportunity to also switch parties to Democratic Party if you're a Democrat, or whatever party you believe in. It was the last day to switch. So it's like, for me, it's like we as young people have to be really conscious about our parents. Like, now we have to do the adulting here. They're making mistakes here. I'm like, sit down with your parents, have the serious conversation, let them know, like, this will hurt me if you make this kind of decision, right? They don't have to deal with the bear of the blunt of it. We do. So as young people, it's also difficult because a lot of young people have school. We have work. So it's really hard to stay and trying to also balance the social life. And that matters. I think that for our mental health and everything, that's it's really good to be around the people that you love and socialize with. But not having that access to really be a part of a decision making process does make it difficult, because you're not really giving something for them to really look forward to. It's like you just come to the meetings and then what? How do you get involved? No one's really giving guidance, right? And especially if you're young, a lot of people tell you, oh, you got to wait until like you're 18. Again, it's going back to being told to wait your turn, right? So there has to be a buy into this. It's like, if you want to be a part of this system, it's like, all right, well, what can I do to change it? You can't just tell me come to these 3. By the way, these community board meetings, man, you've been there. They last for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
A lot of people ain't got time for that, man.
Right, yeah.
Dexter's told me about that.
That's not a buy-in.
Dexter's told me about that.
If I go to, literally, I'm going to be honest, I literally went to maybe a couple of community board meetings in my community, but the last for 3-4 hours, man, it's not.
And it doesn't need to. That's the main thing.
What I also will say that I think is, Shan, that I think you would know too, race and class matter in the access to the community board meetings and also the time spent. When you go into more affluent or white communities, there are more parents there because some of them, maybe one parent has to work in the household. So there's more time for one of those people, if it's a marriage or whoever, to invest into their local politics.
Right.
And that matters too. We talked a lot about that with people from immigrant communities, obviously in lower income communities, having to work and not just having the time.
I was like in a daycare and I had babysitters basically the entire time I was in elementary school.
I remember you talking to me about that.
Because my parents were working all the time. Right. And then I finally got my first key when I was going to middle school because the middle school was like 10 blocks away.
Man.
You know what I mean?
Key meaning his key to his home.
I was wait.
I was like, I don't want anybody to think you were doing something on the streets you were supposed to be doing.
Because I seem like that type of dude. Yeah.
Some people might watch this and stereotype already.
I mean, no, I wasn't joking. I mean, I do seem like the type of dude based on some of the things I've said on this podcast, but I'm not. Anyway.
You know we like to hook our listeners up from time to time, and we have a hookup for you today. So for the listeners of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can check out one of my favorite sports books, $40 Million Slaves, The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Black Athlete by William C. Roden. That's available on audible.com with hundreds of thousands of other books that you can listen to today. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/AHTT. Again, that's audibletrial.com/AHTT for your free audiobook.
I'm still trying to figure this out to this day. Okay. Tulsi Gabbard voting present at the impeachment and being like the only one to do so, I believe.
I don't get it, man.
Okay.
I can't answer for her, man. I don't get it. It confused me. It confused a lot of people. I don't get it.
Still to this day, like I'll wake up.
Don't have an answer for that.
I'll wake up every third day and I'll be like, why did she do that? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, just go ahead.
Sorry. We had to ask. Presidential election 2020, obviously huge. Let's go back to 2016.
Oh man, 2016.
Yeah, let's go back. Let's go back to election day 2016, and I don't know where you were, but when you found first. Okay, let's go before that for a second.
Okay.
Before election day 2016,
did you feel safer?
Did you? Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Did you feel safer walking around the country?
Everybody black and brown felt safer. Did you think 45 could do this? Did you think he could win?
Absolutely not.
Me too.
Absolutely not. I don't think most people thought that he could.
Excuse me.
And man,
he technically didn't win the popular vote.
He didn't win the popular
vote for whatever
vote,
that's worth.
What was scary? I remember this.
That's another thing that's messed up too. That whole system.
Well, we have to abolish
electoral college. Has to go.
We have to get rid of that.
I agree.
Another thing that I think could change within the next however long, if some other people take control of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you like me. You was like, nah, man, there's no way this guy's winning.
No way. So, me, actually, I didn't even vote for Hillary. I actually voted for Jill Stein, just voting out of my own conscience.
Yeah.
Knowing that Jill Stein aligns more with my values than Hillary does. Yeah. But I knew that Hillary was going to win New York anyways. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know? I knew she had it in the bag.
So you're like, whatever, right.
Whatever. And I was pretty confident. I'm like, Hillary's probably going to win this.
Yeah.
No big deal.
And at that point, you had supported Bernie.
Yeah, I was pissed. So I was an independent voter, right? So I couldn't even vote for Bernie in the primaries because New York doesn't allow you.
So was I before I now have switched.
Yeah,
but so was I before I was an independent voter too.
It's terrible, right? So we change that. But I was so pissed at how the Democratic Party establishment, the DNC, just continues on corrupting the system and ensuring that people who are trying to make a system that is better for all of us, that we continuously are left out of this. So I was irate that this happened. So when Bernie was left out, I was just done. But I'm like, you know what? Hillary's probably going to win anyway. There's no way Donald Trump and the millionaires would win this. No way.
Right.
But I remember clear as day sitting on my couch watching the results coming in. I started seeing states like Carolina, Florida, Ohio. I'm like, man, this
Wisconsin,
is not good. Wisconsin,
Pennsylvania.
PA. I was like, whoa, bro.
Then I started getting nervous.
Yeah, I was nervous.
I was nervous, man.
PA, I was like, damn, everybody from York.
I remember texting my I was texting my friend at the time and like, yo, this isn't looking good.
Yeah.
And then when Florida came in, I knew that was like the nail in the coffin.
You were a Marine at that point when all this was going
2016.
on?
Yes, I was in the reserves. So I did 6 years, 2011 to 2017. So I was like getting ready to like transition, head out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
man, that's when he actually won. I'm sure you guys remember. Like the next day, New York was just gloomy.
It was gloomy.
It was
there was like a
weird.
heaviness over everyone, and it just felt it was weird. It's one of the weird. I can always remember that day as long as I live. I never felt that way after an election.
Me neither.
I just think we knew that we were in for a interesting, to say the least, 4 years.
Yeah.
With him in office.
Yo, you know what I remember actually? Now that I think about it, that was the same week that UFC, their first week, they had the card in Madison Square Garden. It was the first UFC card in Madison Square Garden. Conor McGregor was the main event, and I remember a couple of reporters. They were like, "Yo, I just can't go. Like, I just can't." One of them was black too. I'm trying to remember which one it was. They were like, I'm just not in the mood.
I
just can't do it today.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Like a punch to our gut, man.
It's like that and Kobe's death, the same sort of gloom for some reason, are 2 days that I remember distinctly. Like the day after, where it was just like, yo, this is just, I'm like foggy. I'm not gonna be able to get through the day. It's just weird.
It was concerning, I think, for a lot of people, and I think you felt the same way. But now, 4 years later, got a chance to get him out of there.
Hope again.
Yeah. You've supported, excuse me, Bernie Sanders, who's in this race again.
Have you talked to him, by the way?
I actually met him. Yeah, I actually met him a couple of times.
Okay.
I'm sure he doesn't remember me, but I did meet him a couple of times working with Alex.
Look, you get a retweet from him, it's over.
Oh man,
Like
that would be.
you get a retweet.
Can we talk
from
about
him?
that? You've got some interesting endorsements. You got Sean King.
Yeah.
Which is, how does it feel? Sean King, a great guy in terms of activism that we've seen. I don't know him personally, but he's done a lot of great stuff, grassroots work that he's been doing. To get an endorsement from him, what was that like?
Man, so for me, it's another issue that I'm really focusing on is the criminal justice system. We continuously say reforming the criminal justice system. We don't need to reform it anymore. It's just reforming the system. You're just trying to make it better. We're not trying to make it better. We're trying to revolutionize this thing, right?
Yeah.
Mass incarceration. We need to decarcerate. Most of the people who are sitting in Rikers or in prison in itself are for low-level offenses. Majority are black and brown. Mm-hmm. We need to demilitarize the police. We need to legalize marijuana. We need to expunge his record. We need to do so many things. And cash bail. So to have the support of someone with Sean King who's been focusing on this work, it really solidifies that we are really driving that message home. That people are really seeing that we're speaking truth to power. So having his support it's an honor.
Now looking at 2020, I know everybody's eyes is on this election. There is some hope. I think there's a lot of people like us who 45. We want to get him out of here.
Yeah. I think we will. I honestly think we will.
Yeah, I hope we will. How confident are you in doing that? And why do you think Bernie is the guy that can do that? Win the nomination for Democrats and knock him out of office?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple, progressive candidates out there. I have friends who are also Elizabeth Warren supporters. I think she's great too. But for me, I've been loyal to Bernie since 2016. He's been the most consistent candidate, the only candidate that has a movement behind him. Mm-hmm. And I think he's the only one. Trump is actually more afraid of Bernie than he is of Bloomberg or anybody else.
For sure.
He said it himself. His supporters even say it yo, watch out for Bernie. Don't take him for granted.
Yeah. I think Bernie would have beaten him in 2016. For
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely.
I think Bernie would have beaten him in 2016. I think a lot of people, when they saw Hillary win, they were like, man, I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying?
I think that what it comes down to, it's literally on the Democratic Party itself.
Yeah.
I think that if we repeat what happened in 2016, it's going to be on them. Yeah. I'm sorry. And for them to not even just learn from their mistakes just shows how arrogant and just naive they are.
What do you think they should? What do you think the DNC, they should have learned from 2016, right? Because the voter turnout was interesting when you look, even though we both hate all of us hate the electoral college process. The voter turnout was interesting, right? Black women showed up and they voted heavily for Hillary and they supported. But what do you think the Democratic Party needs to do better this time around?
Just let the people vote. Stop trying to put out hit pieces on Bernie or hit pieces on anybody in general, right? I think that the facts are there, right? Why try to change anything? Let the people vote. Don't try to undermine the system, especially what happened in Iowa. The chairman of the Democratic Party just had to step down. Yep. We see it's the Democratic Party that this whole thing with the app they had a role in it. The chairman had to step down because it's like, there's a lot of corruption going on here. And then you got corporate media too. When you look at CNN, MSNBC, it's crazy to think that even Fox, right? They don't even like attack Bernie like that, right? Yeah. So and that's a right wing media outlet. But when you have like more liberal, supposedly liberal left wing outlets like MSNBC, they're constantly attacking Bernie. And we have to look at, who are they friends with? Who's lobbying them? Who they got money with?
Where's the money going?
Where's the relationship,
exactly.
right?
It's all tied in, right?
It's all tied in.
Yeah.
All tied in.
The answer is always money, remember.
That's what it is. When it comes down to money, we are, so for such a man-made thing, we just, like, look up to it and, like, this is supposed to, like, be it for us.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that. But when we look at the money and the relationships that are played into there, it's just not fair. Because a lot of people, and it's sad to say, especially a lot of older folks, they still watch TV, they still watch CNN, they watch all these news outlets, so that's where they get all their information, and it's not facts. These are just straight up opinions.
Yeah.
So they don't do the research to see what's going on, who's actually trying to do what, and then people just buy into it.
The opposition against Bernie, right? Like when you see some of the stuff that comes out against him that I don't always understand, but I see as negative, is that he's a socialist. That's kind of the word you've heard thrown against him. All these things where that's another layered and interesting discussion I could get into of why I think that's problematic.
Right.
What do you want people to know about why you think he's such a good candidate, why you think he's the man for the job to lead this country past the dark days of Trump?
He's the only candidate that's going to end corruption and corporate greed. Literally, his plan is all based on working class solidarity. It's all, when we look at Medicare for All, he's the only one that has a plan that doesn't include insurance profiteering off of sick people, dying people. It's making sure that every person has health care. It's a human right. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about that, and also he's a big advocate for Palestine. That's another issue that matters to me and a lot of like constituents that I hope to represent. We have a huge Muslim population. Is that it's time that we talk about freeing Palestine, making sure that people who are marginalized have human rights. His policies are based on just human rights, human values, just loving one another, and that's just genuine. You can't find that anywhere else.
And I think that's what people want. I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what people want. I think that's why people with money necessarily don't really like him, because he's targeting us.
Yeah, and like, you know what? It's like, I get that at the end of the day, we had to defeat Donald Trump, and people are desperate to get him out, but we can't replace one racist oligarch with another.
Yeah, we got to do this the right way.
We got to do it the right way.
Yeah, otherwise we'll continue to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that is the definition of insanity.
Like a lot of people, when we talk to older voters too, is that they say that, we want to go back to things that the way they are. Like, why are we going to go backwards? We got to move forward.
We got to change it.
We got to move forward. So to like all the young people out there, man, we got to get out there, man. We're the ones that make the difference at the end of the day. If we hit those polls, man, we could make a difference in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope so. I hope, one, in terms of your race and for the primary, I hope voter turnout is fantastic in your district. And we hope that voter turnout is good in November.
And we should tell people more about that. So just explain, I guess, just how does this people work so that they could support you? You know, I mean, how does this work so that people could support you?
Yeah, so
that backwards.
When we get new people involved, they ask that same question, like, how do we do this? And it's crazy to think that this system has been in place for so long. A lot of people don't know how it works. So in order for us to get to June 23rd, which is the election day.
Okay, June 23rd.
It's a process. So in about 2 weeks, starting on the 25th, we are actually starting a petitioning period.
So that might have passed by the time we put this episode out. So February 25th is when
we start petitioning.
Okay.
So we do talk to Democratic voters. We have to get their signatures. So it's not a vote, but it's just the signatures just to verify that we could get on the ballot.
Gotcha.
All right. Okay. So we need 1,250 signatures minimum. But we need to make sure that we get 2-3 times more than that, so that way our opposition doesn't challenge us in court, because they could challenge our signatures if they're invalid or whatever it is. They could do whatever they can to take us to court and kick us off the ballot.
And if it's close to 1,250, they're going to try to pull that corny card.
So that's what we collect 3 times more than this. Our goal is trying to get like 5,000, 6,000 signatures, so that way we know that we are.
Can people sign electronically, or these have to be?
Nah, these are paper. So we had to go door to door, street to street, subway stops, wherever.
They're making you work for it.
Yeah, we have to work for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the number one more time that you need?
So it's 1,250 signatures, but our goal is to get to like 6,000 signatures, making sure that we are solid.
Making sure that you're solid. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, and then once we get on the ballot, so that's like a 1 month process. At the end of March, we hand them into the Board of Elections.
Yeah.
Once they verify everything, we get on the ballot. And then that literally leaves us with April to June 23rd, just to like making sure we get people to come out and vote. It's called GOTV, get out to vote. That requires to go door to door, make sure that we hit our target number, making sure that we also do phone calls. So sometimes people aren't comfortable. If you don't have experience, that's cool. You don't have to go door to door. You can make phone calls. You can do it from your home. You can do it from our offices. Call voters. Let them know about the election. And once we make that connection, everything's in God's hands, and hopefully, the outcome is in our favor.
That's good, and doing it on the ground floor too, because that's what people.
That's how it happens, man.
This is how it happens. Yeah, I mean, well, this is how it should happen.
Yeah.
At least.
gotta hit the streets. Well, yeah, we wish you the best of luck with the upcoming election.
Thanks,
I think you have great policies and things you're going to do and push it forward, man. It's all the positive energy is around there. We got to ask you, because you play sports.
Yeah.
Played rugby. So you're a sports fan. Who are your sports teams? Who do you like?
Oh man, so I've never played baseball my entire life, but baseball is my favorite sport. I'm a huge Yankees fan. Since I was a child.
Yankees fan.
Since I was a child.
We're Mets fans here.
Oh
so.
man, I'm sorry.
I'm not a Yankee hater, at least.
Yeah, me either. I'm not. My dad's a Yankee fan. We still.
My brother's a Yankee fan.
My dad tells me this story. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but when I was like a toddler, maybe like 1 or 2 years old, he actually gave me the option of picking up a Mets hat and a Yankees hat. Apparently, allegedly, according to him, I picked up the Yankees hat, so I just stuck with that.
What year was this? Because that matters.
Man, so
because if this was in like
before Derek Jeter.
Oh, I was gonna say if this was like 96.
Nah, this was before Jeter came on the scene, man. But Jeter's like one of my other like idols. I was maybe about 2 years old, so maybe like 94, 93. Yeah. So
that was when I was born.
Yeah. So I just remember looking at pictures. I just had a Yankees hat in so many pictures. I'm like, all right, well, I'm a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
So man, we got screwed out with the championship. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta say?
That's all I gotta say. I think that. But I love the Yankees. I'm a Giants fan. I think that with Saquon and Daniel Jones, I hope he does take it up to the next level. I think there's gonna be a lot of potential there. I'm a Knicks fan.
I'm a
diehard. Go to the grave.
You know what? You guys can go to therapy together. I'm telling you.
That's the one team. So you're like my dad. The only thing we agree on is the Knicks. He's a Yankees and Giants fan. The Knicks, man. I'm not gonna say too much about that because we could be here forever. But Brian knows my pain.
What about athletes? You do combat sports at all?
Combat sports, man. I haven't been watching combat sports as much. I was a huge GSP fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, huge. But
he needs to fight one more time.
Yeah,
man.
I think he needs to fight one more time.
He needs to give us one more.
I don't have a favorite boxer, but I love watching boxing. I think it's still a great sport. I think that there's a lot of potential to bring it to the way it was years ago.
Yeah.
With the promotion and money making and all that. But I think it's still
boxing's a freaking mess, man.
Yeah.
Are you one of these people like I do this? I think Dexter kind of does this, where you find people from where your family is from and then you support them. Like, do you support other people who come from maybe Bangladesh or Bangladesh
like
families?
Athletes?
Yes.
Man. I can't think of like a lot of Bangladeshi athletes. Like for our people, we love cricket. I am not a cricket fan, but our people, they love cricket.
That's true.
They love soccer. They love international soccer, so they'll support teams like Germany, Brazil. The big names.
Okay.
For me, it's like whoever I could. I like to really look at the backstory of athletes too. That's what I love.
Same.
To do,
yeah. Of course.
I think that's also inspirational because we kind of like share that visionary of trying to be them. It's very synonymous.
And
right?
we also there's a little bit of a disconnect to where people just not us, but people see athletes as just athletes where it's like, no, they're human beings, with the struggle that like their perseverance, you could channel it in what you do, and I think that's why Kobe Bryant resonates with a lot of people and Mamba mentality and things like
absolutely,
that. Like their work ethic, like athletes with that work ethic, you could channel it in what you do, in what you do, even running for Congress, and what I do in sports media, and what Dexter does, and things like that. Yeah, like you can totally do that. I want to ask you, you're a hip hop head, right?
Big.
We should get your top 5 before you get out of here. You're from Southside Jamaica, Queens.
Yeah.
I don't know if 50 Cent's in your top 5, but are you a 50 Cent fan?
Not anymore.
Really?
Oh man, whole Southside Jamaica Queens gonna be mad at you.
It's all good.
But you guys still come out and vote. Still come out and vote.
Do you watch Power?
I've watched episodes here and there.
Okay, because
I've been able to stay consistent with it.
So because I was wondering if this is just music based or is this 50 in general, because I think he's hilarious on Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's a huge troll. He's a huge troll.
Yeah, I don't listen to his new music as much, but he's put out a couple of joints. But were you like, in the Marines bumping Get Rich or Die Trying?
Man, that album is a classic.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
His old joints are classics, but his new stuff, it's just 50 himself. Really, I still.
Well, that's not really his focus now, so I don't hold that against.
I don't hold that against.
But I'm wondering because Jamaica, you got some other guys that are from Jamaica too.
If we're talking about like people like Boss from Dreamville, he's from Jamaica.
Yeah.
So he's in my top 5.
So
he's in my top 5.
That's your boy, Dexter.
I think. Why is he my boy?
Because you like him.
I like Boss. Boss is good. Boss, I think, is underrated, and I really liked his last album. He's underrated, like
hands down.
At first, when he came out, because I'm a big J. Cole fan. First when he came out, I was kind of like, but like he's really solid and made some good projects. Like his last project was really good.
He's so different. What I love about him, like he has this unique sound where it's like he has like that European flow as well with his production, and he's so smooth on the mic, man. So smooth, so smart. And he's also very active of what's going on, like in the world, and especially what's going on in Sudan. He's so that's someone like that I could like really just like resonate with.
That you really like.
Yeah,
and
really like.
We'll come back to the top 5.
Yeah.
Who do you really like? Like I guess I hate saying this as I get older. Today's current rappers, like
who are you listening to?
Who you listen to right now?
Who you listening
Man,
to?
I love J. Cole. I love J. Cole.
Okay.
St. John. I love listening to Travis Scott. Drake always puts out something.
God's plan.
Okay. That tells me that you're hitting the gym, or trying to at least, because you said that you hadn't been in a week. Because Travis Scott, that's gym stuff.
Workout music.
That's gym music.
Man.
J. Cole's got some of that. Drake is gym music for the well, not totally, but Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick, of course.
Yeah.
Can't go on with K. Dot. I think actually with To Pimp a Butterfly, that's what like kind of like radicalized me, man.
Really?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So the crazy thing is, I grew up as a socialist. My dad's a socialist and everything, so I always had those values.
We're the same.
So that's how Grenada got its independence.
That's right.
Oh,
that's why. That's why I have some of those.
Yeah.
See, you know your history.
Yeah. So, growing with those values, like, we should be looking out for one another. But then, when that happened, when he dropped that album, it was like such a perfect timing with everything that was going on with Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, and that it really got people just fed up. We were just done with the system. People hit those streets, and then there was always that pushback. But when K. Dot did it on the mainstream level in an art form, and seeing that visually, hearing that lyrically on with our headsets on, I'm like, man, this is like something else.
Yeah, I love that album. I'm a huge Kendrick fan, so I love that album, man. I actually got to see on tour when he did the Kunta Groove sessions here in New York. I got to see him perform. That was one of my favorite concerts ever. It was great.
I can imagine, man.
It was great. It was a really great experience. Who do you have as your top 5 all time? Top 5 rappers all time.
All time. All right, so I'm gonna try to go in order.
Okay.
I got J. Cole number 1.
Number 1, J. Cole.
One.
There you go. Okay.
J. Cole number 1. Number 2, go with Nas.
Oh, yes.
So for me, Nas was like, a lot of like my older cousins. That's how I got into hip hop. I was like maybe 7, 8 years old. My older cousins, they were into rapping, they're freestylists, but they introduced me to Nas.
So that was kind of your introduction.
That's kind of my introduction.
Not a bad introduction.
It's not. But for me, J. Cole's my number 1 just because I could relate more, because it's more relevant.
Yeah.
So when he came out on the scene, I was like a teen, so I'm like, oh man, I could really relate to his music. Right?
Yeah, you grew up with him.
I grew up with him.
Understood.
So for me,
and
he's
he's
my number
kind of from Queens. He
yeah,
went to school with St. John's.
No, I can see that.
Yeah.
No,
So
that makes sense.
He'd be out
Okay.
here.
So J. Cole 1, Nas 2.
I got Lauryn Hill number 3.
Yo.
Okay, Dex.
Lauryn Hill does not get the respect she deserves.
Definitely
For
not.
those of you listening, they just pounded.
I had to give him a pound.
I had to give him a pound.
He's socialist, new to history of Grenada. He also loves Lauryn Hill. Salute,
Yeah,
brother. Salute.
man. I got Jay at 4,
Okay.
and I got Andre 3000 at 5.
That's a good 5, man.
Yeah.
Some of my favorites in there.
Yeah, man. But those are just like my top, like my top 5 all time. But currently, like if I have like a current list, it's J. Cole still. I got Boss.
You strike me as a Royce the 5'9" fan. I don't know why.
I like him, but it's just not my my cup of tea. But I like him.
I'm trying to make assumptions.
Yeah.
Stop judging.
Actually, I actually been watching this Netflix docu-series on hip hop.
Hip Hop Evolution?
Yes,
I
love it.
So
man.
I was just texting Dexter about this yesterday.
I love it.
I watched the first 2 seasons already.
Yeah, I watched the first season. That's all I watched.
I'm gonna, because it's short. All the episodes are like 40, 45 minutes. The second season is really good.
It's really good.
The 4th episode in particular, because there's a couple episodes where I'm like, okay, like cool. The New York one though, where they talk about I forget the name of the hotel. I don't want to spoil it, but all the producers and stuff.
I'm gonna start watching some of this.
They talk about Illmatic in that episode too.
Yeah.
How far have you gotten into the series?
I finished the first 3 seasons. I know season 4 is out right now. I just
season
haven't
4
had the time.
just came out.
You're a busy man.
Time.
We know
yeah,
that.
I want to get to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna season 3 and season 4. I'm gonna be hitting up real soon.
It's interesting because both of you guys are close to the same age. So when you see, I think for me it's a little different because I'm a little older than you, and watching hip hop back in its really early stages, even though it was a little bit that was past me, but when I go back to like the early 80s, what is it like for you even watching the early 90s? Because I kind of grew up into that. Like I was 11 when Illmatic came out, and I was like, that was the first album I bought. And so like, what's it like for you guys watching that, the scene of hip hop then to what it is now?
You know, for me, it's like music in general is going to continue to always evolve.
Yeah.
You know, you can't resist the change. Like even with like trap music, it's like it's part of the culture. It's just it's rap music, but just in a different branch, I guess you could say. It's still hip hop music with the productions and everything. It's just a different style. And that's what the current like generations listen to, right? But it's like it's interesting, you know, because it's like I'm going to look back and I know in like 10, 20 years, I'm like, man, I'm going to look back into like the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. I'm like, this is like a good time for me.
Because that was your era.
That was my era.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like I read the study once about how like most people, the music that they consider the best is the music they heard between the ages of like 11 and 14.
Yeah.
Right? Like
those were teen years, man.
Yeah.
We're going through a lot.
You're going through a lot. Yeah. And some of my favorite
I
albums, when you think about it, come
I
from
disagree with that. Hell, nah.
It was a study. I have to find this for you. I'll send it to
you.
you.
For me, it doesn't apply because like 11 to 14, that would be 05 to 08.
Some great albums came out for me. In
you had
them.
Not me.
05
05
to
to 08 was not
Man.
great.
I mean, Kanye though. I mean, Kanye was that was a good time for Kanye.
It was a great time for Kanye. It was
Yeah,
a
great time for
That was when he
Kanye.
was still Kanye. But I'm saying like I think the Carter 3 is overrated. That came out around that
So
time.
do I. Actually think that was overrated.
That was when a lot of the South was really taking over.
South is, I think, completely has taken over right now.
Right now.
But that was when I feel like that started. Because I remember 05 was a lot of Mike Jones, a lot of Paul Wall.
Mike Jones.
Chameleonaire.
You talking about this Mike Jones.
Chameleonaire, who I actually love. Nas came back, Hip Hop is Dead, and then the N-Word album.
That wasn't a great time
American
for
Gangster
hip-hop
came out in
outside.
07.
Dexter came out.
Gangster, Lupe Fiasco's first two
Ooh,
albums.
Oh man, Lupe, how can
Food
you
and
can't
Liquor.
Oh man, you
Food
can't leave
Liquor. That was
out
a great
Lupe.
album.
Liquor.
So you like
And the
I love
Cool.
Lupe.
yeah,
And
and
the
the Cool.
Cool
Those
came
two
out at
albums
that
were
time,
great.
too.
Great
Those were great
album.
albums.
There's some good ones, but I'm saying in totality, it's not. Those aren't like my.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see how that was a lower period for hip hop. What do you think about New York hip hop though? Right? Because you talked about the sound, and there's always that debate too about, like, has New York lost its sound? Do you think we have, or do you think it's just evolved?
I think it's evolved. You know, I think that
in a good way though, because everybody's trying to sound like the South now.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how you take in what your taste is, really. It's really hard to judge because everyone has different taste, right?
Right.
So it's like, I think it's evolved, but it's great to have that piece of memory and knowing that this is our history still. And that is something like we could always like look at too and see that no one else had that.
Right.
You know? So I think music is still in a good place. I think that there's a lot of like artists who are going to come up in the future, I'm sure. You know, I think that's going to really kill the game.
Yeah. All right. One last thing before we get you out of here. If you have to pick a hip hop song that defines your campaign, the theme song. You like this question?
Yeah.
The theme song for your campaign right now. What would it be?
The theme song.
Ooh.
It's hard because you got to try to appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
You don't want to piss some people off.
Many Men by 50 Cent.
Many men should come out and vote. That's what it should
Right.
You know, I think it would have to be.
I'm trying to think of a J. Cole song.
I was gonna go with J. Cole song.
Let me hear this. I'm intrigued.
Return to Simba.
Man, Friday Night Lights. That album. No, that mixtape. That should
Mixtape's
be an album.
good.
But
Oh yeah.
but I think I would have to go. It might be corny, but I'm gonna go with Nas. I Know I Can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just-
Nah,
just-
that's good.
You know, just
Nah,
'cause
that's
we're
really
underdog.
good.
Self-belief, positivity
Yeah.
out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I can.
You know, it's
okay.
It's about
Yeah.
making positive changes, education, incorporating young
Yeah.
people in
Yeah.
the movement.
Yeah, I like
You know,
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
That's a really good
That's a really
choice.
good-
Because
that's
I
a
was
really
trying to
good
think
choice.
what J. Cole's songs would be applicable
Plenty
here.
Plenty.
Blow Up.
Blow up.
Blow Up is a
You
pretty
are
good
about to
one.
blow up. We're
Blow
going to
Up
put
is
that
a
positive
pretty good
energy
one.
out there. Yeah, we're going to put that positive
man.
energy out there.
To support, because people, your website, we should give that out,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yes.
so then people could go and vote.
For
Or you
sure.
want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the election's not until June 23rd, but we do need.
We'll have you back before that.
Oh, that'd be dope.
We got to have you back
Yeah,
before
we should.
that.
And after. We'd like, yeah.
And
I'm
after.
down.
And closer
I'm
to the
down.
national election.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we've brought people back here that we
Oh, yeah.
really,
We have,
really
if
messed
you'd love to
with.
come
So-
back and hang with us,
man,
please.
yeah.
Sure.
I had
Yeah.
a great time, y'all. Yeah, thank you. But we do need boots on the ground, making sure that we do have a solid volunteer base. So if you can volunteer, you don't need experience. You know, we could train you. It's really, really easy. Visit www.shan2020.com, or you could even just email us directly at info@shan, that's SHAN2020.com.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great, man. We wish you all the best coming up. Continue to fight for the people.
you.
There are people who appreciate this, and I know they absolutely will.
And on that website, you'll see policies, you'll
Yeah,
see Puerto Rico, you'll
all the
see
information
support
is
for
there.
LGBTQIA+, Green New Deal, reparations, foreign policy, everything.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Sean is for the people. We're glad to have you here on the
Thank
A Hard
you.
Talk. You are, it's history.
It's history.
First politician on the podcast here.
For sure.
First time, and it's great. We thank you so much for it. Check out all his information. You can find there to support him. That's Shan Chowdhury. He'll be running as a Democratic candidate for New York District 5. So support him in the great work that he's doing. That's it for episode 112 of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. For Shan Chowdhury, Brian Fonseca, I'm Dexter Henry.
Later.
Until next time, y'all. Peace.